So if you've ever used AI, you know that feeling, right? You ask it a question, and the answer you get back is, well, it's kind of generic, or maybe just not what you were hoping for. But what if there was a simple, repeatable way to get exactly what you want from AI pretty much every single time? Today, we're going to break down author Becky Amble's amazing method for doing just that.
We have all been there. You think you're saving time, but instead you just end up in this frustrating loop, rewriting your question, trying again, and wondering, why doesn't this super smart tool get what I'm asking? It can be maddening. And this experience from the author herself just hits the nail on the head. She asked about benchmarking and got an answer that was, yeah, technically correct, but for the completely wrong field. The result was totally useless. And that moment really highlights a crucial lesson when we're talking to AI. And that leads us to the core idea here. The problem isn't actually the AI. Think of it like an incredibly powerful engine, but that engine needs clear directions to get to the right destination. The quality of your output is always, and I mean always, a direct reflection of the quality of your input. A vague prompt is just going to get you a vague answer. Okay, so that's where this solution comes in, the clear framework. It's a simple 5-step recipe designed to turn your kind of fuzzy questions into really structured instructions that guide the AI to give you exactly what you need.
It's an acronym, CLEAR. It all starts with being clear and specific. Then you define the lens and language. After that, you set explicit expectations. You plan to adjust and refine. And finally, you assign the AI a role. So let's break down what each of these really looks like in practice.
All right, let's dive into these 5 elements. And you should think of them less like some rigid checklist and more like the essential ingredients in a recipe for getting fantastic AI results. First up, C. This is all about being clear and specific. This is the foundation of everything. It means getting rid of any and all ambiguity and just giving the AI really precise details. Vague words like good or better or help me with, those are basically your enemy here. And just look at the difference this makes. On the left, give me marketing ideas. That's a total shot in the dark. But look at the right. Being specific, asking for 10 LinkedIn post ideas for B2B owners about AI adoption, that gives the AI a crystal clear target to aim for. All right, next is L for lens and language. And this one is all about context. You've got to tell the AI who this is for, what tone it should use, and what kind of language is appropriate for that audience. I mean, this is a perfect example. On the left, you have a technical explanation for engineers, right? It's using terms like API latency and ORM queries. But on the right, it's the same problem, but framed for executives, focusing on things like page load times and user retention. See? The lens changes everything. Defining your audience is absolutely crucial. Okay, on to E for explicit expectations. This is where you get to be the director. You need to tell the AI exactly what you want the final output to look like. Don't just hope you get a good format, you have to demand it. Seriously, think of it like a little checklist for yourself. Do you want a table or maybe a bulleted list? Do you need a 200-word summary or a 5-item breakdown? And does it absolutely have to include pros and cons or cost estimates? Spell it all out. Now, this next one is a huge mindset shift. A is for adjust and refine. Here's the thing. The best results almost never happen on the very first try. You have to start thinking of prompting not as a one-and-done command, but as the start of a conversation. You should actually plan on this back and forth. It's a collaborative process. Getting a solid first draft and then saying, okay, now add a column for budget estimates, or can you rewrite this from a CFO's perspective? That's not a sign of failure. That's how you sculpt the perfect final product. And finally, we've got R for role. And this might just be the most powerful trick in the entire playbook. You can actually assign the AI a persona. Tell it to be a specific expert or a skeptical customer or a seasoned consultant. This shapes its perspective and unlocks some seriously domain-specific insights. And this is exactly why being specific with the role is such a game changer. On the left, act as an expert. That's going to get you a generic, kind of bland response. But on the right, when you tell it to be a consultant with a very specific track record, whoa, now the AI can draw from a much, much richer context. It's not just spitting out information, it's giving you focused, experience-based analysis. All right, so we've seen all the pieces. Now let's put them all together and see what this looks like. The incredible transformation from a vague, frustrating prompt to one that actually delivers immediate value.
So here's the before picture, a classic vague request that is pretty much guaranteed to give you a useless generic page of text that sounds like it was copied from Wikipedia. It is a complete waste of your time. And now, look what happens when we apply the CLEAR framework to that same idea. Instead of that vague mess, we give it this. We have a defined role, a market research analyst. We have a clear and specific scope, the US mid-market B2B software market. There's a lens for leadership team, and we have explicit expectations, 250 words covering 4 key points. The result here isn't just a little better, it's in a completely different universe of quality. So how did we do that? How did we get from that useless prompt to this powerhouse? It wasn't magic, it was just the method. Let's break it down. A specific market was named, right? The audience and purpose were defined. We dictated the exact format and the required components, and we assigned it a relevant expert role. Each one of those building blocks from the CLEAR framework came together to create an instruction that guarantees a valuable result. Okay, so now that we know what to do, let's quickly flip this around for a second. Because honestly, recognizing the common pitfalls is one of the fastest ways to get better. So what are the big mistakes that the CLEAR method helps us avoid? Here they are, the most common traps. The vague ask, the context-free request, what the author calls first draft syndrome, using a generic expert role, and finally, the kitchen sink approach, where you just ask for way too much all at once. Every single one of these mistakes is directly solved by one of the steps in the CLEAR framework. And that really brings us to the most important thing to remember here. You don't need to be a coder. You don't have to become some so-called prompt engineer to get incredible results from AI. As this final slide says, the goal isn't complexity. You just have to be clear. Look, this framework gives you a systematic way to find that clarity. It turns what feels like a frustrating guessing game into a reliable, strategic process. So the only real question left is, what big problem, what important challenge are you going to solve with your next much clearer prompt?